Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Archana and I'm a homeschooling mom of two boys aged 8 and almost 3. In today's video, I wanted to talk to you about some of the lessons that I have learned in my 5 years homeschooling my son. So if I were to go back in the past, before I actually started homeschooling, and give my past me some solid advice, these would be it. Now, the first lesson that I have learned is that the most important component in a homeschool is the parent and the child. And I have learned that you don't need a good curriculum. Sometimes you don't need a curriculum at all. You don't need a homeschool space. All you need is a child willing to learn and a parent who's willing to be a guide. Not a teacher necessarily, but a guide who's open to leading the homeschooling journey. So I have learned that it's important to bring the best version of myself into the homeschool. I must be positive and energetic every single day. I think this is a must. This is what has worked in my favor in the last 4 years. On days that I've been tired or fatigued or overwhelmed or, I'm PMSing or I haven't had a good night's sleep, I notice that I can transfer that attitude to my son, and my son is not really enthusiastic about the lessons either. And worse, he associates that fatigue with the lesson, not with me. I mean, it's so funny, but children are like that. So my son will say, oh, this lesson is boring or math is boring, because I can see subtly that he's associating the boredom and the fatigue with the lesson and not with me. On other days, when I bring the best version of myself into the homeschool, I see that my son is equally enthusiastic about the learning. Mom self-care is really not overrated, because it is a great responsibility. For even in our own lives, I have personally hated certain subjects because I've associated them with the teachers that have taught them. And conversely, some of my best subjects and best memories were with teachers who were absolutely passionate about the subject that they were teaching. I will never forget my high school trigonometry teacher. I have long forgotten trigonometry, but I never forgot the passion in this teacher's eyes, right? How could a person be so passionate about something so dry? I thought something so dry. And of course, as parents, we can't all be passionate and gung-ho about every subject that we are teaching our child, as long as there is this beautiful relationship between the parent and the child, as long as the mom is positive, well fed, hydrated, has had a good night's sleep, and is positive about what she is teaching her child. I think that's more than enough. Now, the second lesson that I have learned is a big lesson about curriculum. I used to think before I started homeschooling that curriculum was really important. And now I know that curriculum is not important at all. Especially in the early years, you don't actually need an expensive curriculum. If you have a Pinterest account, you can just type in free curriculum resources, and there's tons and tons of free resources out there. And if you have a library card, and if you can just grab as many books as your library will allow you to borrow at a time, that is more than enough in the early years, right? There's no need for hardcore worksheet-oriented, very expensive curriculum. As long as you spend the early years developing that strong bond between your child, taking walks together, reading together, just exploring your child's interests, finding out what kind of a learner he is, and just reading together with your child, this is more than sufficient. Actually, this does your homework for the years to follow, because this lays a solid foundation where your child develops this intrinsic love for learning, this intrinsic passion for learning, and you have paved the way for a beautiful relationship between you and your child, where your child is automatically receptive to all that you're trying to teach. It's not wise to overwhelm a child, especially if you know that you're going to be homeschooling your child for a long time. It's not wise to overwhelm the child in the early years with a very heavy curriculum, because there will be times when your child will push back, and you don't want to be pushed back really hard because it's difficult to bounce back, right? So it's better to ease in and feather in with the academics. And even after the early years are done, and you decide that your child, that you need to introduce a curriculum, right? Even then, academics can be very slowly feathered in. And as far as curriculum goes, less is more. I mean, even at home, even with writing, with copy work, with worksheets, as Charlotte Mason says, shorter lessons, deeper focus in the early years. Up until 4th grade, 15 to 20 minutes, I think that's more than sufficient. And in those 15 to 20 minutes, you will notice a portal open up between you and your child will be totally in tune to what you're trying to say. And beyond that, he or she will just completely space you out. So I've noticed that less is more in the time that we're trying to teach our child, as well as in the curriculum that we're trying to choose for our academic journey. Now, the next thing that I've learned is never to underestimate your child's passions. Now, I know it's a cliche to say that kids and babies and children are basically sponges, but it's true. Children are sort of born wanting to learn, wanting to pick up these cues from their environment. And they always have a million questions in their heads. And each of these questions is a wonderful rabbit hole of learning and discovery. Now, I know some kids have really profound interests like dinosaurs or the periodic table. Other kids just want to know how bread is made. They just want to know how a whole bunch of separate ingredients goes into the oven and makes this absolutely wonderful cake. When we give them the time and the space and the resources to explore these passions, they understand that learning is for the sheer joy of it, not for the fulfillment of a purpose, not as a means to an end, but just as an end in itself. And that creates passion. And how much ever you try, you can never teach passion as a part of your curriculum. That is something that is the root of intrinsic motivation, and that has to be cultivated from a very, very young age. Like the first time we tasted Chinese food, my son was like, "What is that wonderful taste?" And I said, "That is soy sauce." And so he's like, "What is soy sauce?" So we, went to YouTube and we watched videos on how soy sauce is made, and we tried a whole bunch of recipes at home, and he kept on asking deeper and deeper questions. Now, if soy sauce starts with soybeans and soybeans are white, how come it ends up black in a bottle? And if it's fermented, is it the same as sauerkraut? Is it the same as sourdough bread? So it took us on this whole magical journey, which involved studying Eastern cultures, which involved studying chemistry. So you can never underestimate a curious question, which may lead to a passionate journey, a passionate rabbit hole of learning and discovery. So, I think it builds trust. It builds this beautiful bond between parent and child, and it really sparks and ignites this flame of learning in your child. That is magical. That is pure homeschool gold. So the next lesson that I've learned is that balance in homeschool life is really, really hard. I'm not saying that it's unachievable, but it's hard, and it's hard to achieve it consistently on a daily basis. Because as a mom/instructor, you have these two dual responsibilities that you are constantly having to juggle and fulfill. One is of the home, and the other one is of the school, or the learning that's constantly taking place. So since this learning is taking place in the home has to be a warm, inviting, nurturing place. And who is going to upkeep the home? Hopefully with help from your better half and your children, it's most probably going to be you. So there are going to be days when you know that it's 10 o'clock in the morning and you have to be on the table and your child is waiting for you to start the day. But you are still mopping those sticky floors because your toddler dropped a whole bunch of maple syrup during breakfast. And that's okay, all right? That's really okay. It's okay to delay your homeschool by 1 or 2 hours if you have to catch up on a couple of chores at home. And likewise, if you're in your homeschool room or you're on the kitchen table and you're having these big juicy conversations, as Julie Bogart would say, and you can't strip yourself away from this moment of learning or from this moment between you and your child, and it's okay. You can always do takeout, right? So this tenebrious balance that moms are after is very difficult to achieve on an everyday basis. So even if you wake up at 5 a.m. in the morning, even if you invest in the most expensive planner, right? Some days balance is hard, and you just have to be gentle with yourself. You have to be gentle with your homeschool, and you have to be gentle with your child. Some days are going to be hot and messy. Some days are going to be beautiful and orchestrated. And that's the nature of homeschool. And I've learned to accept it as it comes. And even though I've learned a million other lessons, one final lesson that I want to talk to you about today is that there will be naysayers in your life about this decision that you've taken. There will be people in your life who will criticize you, who will probably, give you an offhanded remark about maybe your child would have been better off in a school setting. Maybe he or she could have been socialized better had you put him in a school. Or maybe his math would have been better if you had put him in a school. Or even if you have a very supportive group of friends, a very supportive family, you will have that gnawing voice in your head that will wake you up in the middle of the night and ask you if you've done right by your child. Let me tell you, this is a big responsibility, right? Taking the responsibility to educate your child is huge. And coupled with that, is my child socialized enough? Is he healthy enough? Is he getting enough physical exercise? Is he at par with his other peers? Is he okay? Is he growing well? Is he happy? Is he mentally okay? All of these questions will plague you as a parent in the middle of the night. They will wake you up, right? And you have to go down to the kitchen, pour yourself a tall glass of water, and just take a deep breath, because it's normal. Any parent, whether you're homeschooling or not, will have these doubts. And I think it's totally normal. And especially if you're homeschooling, these doubts, these voices in your head, these negative voices in your head, or these offhanded remarks from the outside, either the external source of conflict or the internal source of conflict, are constant companions. We just have to learn to live with that. As long as we're okay with our own assessment of ourselves as parents, how much we've grown as parents, and as long as we are okay with our own children's growth and the progress that they've made, we will have the tools to cope with the voices in our own heads as well as with the naysayers around us. So that's all I have for you today, and I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, hit that red subscribe button and give me a thumbs up, and please comment below what have been your biggest lessons in your homeschool journey. So I'll see you next time with another video. Bye-bye.